Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Martin. I am the Director of Ignatian Service Learning and Engagement here at Loyola Academy. In this opening video for this first unit, I wanted to contextualize the service that you hopefully are in the midst of or have completed, so 4 to 6 hours with a community of your choice. But I wanted to contextualize the service you did within the goal of doing advocacy, which is at the heart of this class, right? So what's the relationship in some ways to these opening service experiences that you've had and advocacy work? So I will do that by sort of giving you a few concepts, thinking about that in light of the Jesuit mission, and then to give you a series of 3 questions to reflect on that Mr. McGuire will grade for you. So first of all, what does advocacy mean, right? And as you probably already know in this course, advocacy is really about speaking up on behalf of an issue or people that don't have a voice or people speaking on their behalf. Consequently, a lot of times has to do with communities and groups that are not in power, right? But you or us, who are people who might be in power, using our power and our education to amplify those voices and those issues that may not have a hearing without it, right? So I also want to think about advocacy as service itself to these communities on the margin, right? That's using your own power and your voice, right, to especially influence decision making about policy, right? And that typically has to do with government or power, whether it be within the school, the administration, or within a local village or a state or federal level. The 3 sets of questions, here they are. So the first question really just has you focus on the service that you did. It's really important that we don't just glide across those experiences, right? But we actually try to enter deeply into those experiences, to encounter people, to encounter communities, right? To maybe challenge ourselves in different ways through that encounter, right? To learn more than we give in those moments. So number 1, question 1 is describe in thick, rich detail one moment that stands out for you. So I would do this in, probably 5 to 7 sentences, good thick sentences. So this may be a moment, right, that you had while you were there. It could have been just a monotonous moment. It could have been a jarring moment or an unexpected moment. It could be an encounter that you had with a person, right? Just spend some time reflecting on giving Mr. McGuire the details about what happened. Tell the kind of story of that, right? In Ignatian reflections, we're always taught to think about our senses too. So what did you see? What did you hear, right? How did you feel about that, right? And be really honest and authentic in your reflection. I think that's really important. So that's question 1. Question 2 has to do more with intrapersonal reflection, right? Not on what you did, but what you thought about before going in, how you felt in the midst of it, and now reflecting back, how do you think about how you thought about it, right? So this has to do with, first of all, is what are the biases that you had about the community that you're working with prior to working with them? And how did those biases change after the experience, and why? So that's the question, actually, 2A. There's also a 2B for that. And then the second is, what values guide you that you have in your life? Not biases here, but deeper, more rich. The values, right, that guide you as you reflect on your perspectives and motivations, as well as your observations from this experience, right? So the first is about sort of a bias acknowledgement and reflection, right? And we all have them, and we can't but have them, right? But what we hope to do, we're oftentimes socialized into that by media or our lack of experience with a community, right? And then afterwards, though, how did those biases change? And then the value piece, the value question, right, is, I want you to maybe invite you to reflect about that in light of the Jesuit mission, right? And I'm going to give you guys a quote. This is a really powerful one for me that's guided me for many years, ever since I've been here at Loyola. And it comes from the Jesuit Peter Hans Kolvenbach. He talks about the purpose of a Jesuit education in here. So that is, solidarity is learned through contact rather than concepts. Students, in the course of their formation, must let the gritty reality of this world into their lives so that they can learn to feel it, think about it critically, and respond to its sufferings, engage in it constructively. They should learn to perceive and think and judge and choose to act for the rights of others, especially the disadvantaged and the oppressed. So I just leave that there. You can use that as a basis if you choose to for value reflection. But remember, the first is on biases that you had prior to going in about them, and did it modify and change? And the second is, were your values that guided you, and going into it, have they changed and been modified or added? The third is probably the most difficult because it has to do really more with advocacy itself. And it's tough to do after just a couple of visits. But hopefully you were listening for and identifying different social issues that you saw. And if not, you can reflect on those now, right? So what are the social issues? Oftentimes these organizations you work with are just band-aids, right? They're not really going at the root causes of why a community is grappling with these things. You guys know the metaphor that's oftentimes used, which is about a person on the side of the river who is they're sitting there watching it, and there's babies, dead babies that are floating down the river. And you sit there and you're like, oh, we better pull this baby out. And then you get the baby and you wash it off and maybe you bury it. But you're there the next day and another baby comes by, or two babies, and you do the same thing. But after a while, you're like, well, why are the babies floating down the river? So going after the root causes, right, it's kind of like going up the river to find out what's causing the babies to be in the water, right? And so this question, the last one, is really asking you, what are the root causes of the issues at the community you are serving? And what sorts of policy is currently directed at addressing these? Or, if not, what should be directed at addressing these? So this is more challenging, I think, especially around the questions of policy with the community that you're working with. Maybe Mr. McGuire will give you some time in class. If not, I would say reach out to him or other teachers or even us down here, or even best yet, the community partner themselves. So the contact that you had there, ask them what policies are currently working and which one they would recommend to work. So those are the three sets. The first one focuses on just describing in thick, rich detail what you did. The second has to you reflecting on biases and your values and clarifying what you believe and hold. And the third has you look at issues and root causes and policy related to the community that you're working with. Good luck with that. I look forward to seeing where you go with all of this in the rest of the course.